All right, Pastor Joel from Music of Life Church Kimberly and Pastor Jonathan from Music of Life Church Appleton. I want to thank you for joining me here on my podcast. This is the fourth episode I've done. And as everybody knows now, the podcast is called me interviewing two pastors about their podcasts. So what I do is I normally have two different pastors on my podcast, and then I interview them about the podcast they have. So thank you for joining me today.
Great to be here, man.
So Pastor Jonathan and Pastor Joel have a podcast called What the Flock. And they go over topics that have caused so much damage that people don't want to come to church anymore. Like I said, this is my fourth episode, and they have been on here all four. This is a very special treat that we have today because this normally happens. So again, thanks everybody for being here. I'd like to get started. I'd like to interview you guys on your season 4 episodes 10, 11, and 12, which were Mercy, Confrontation, and it was also Unity. All right. Are you ready to talk about these things?
Yes, sir.
Hopefully it's more entertaining than your podcast was, but we'll see. All right. So I want to start with Mercy. Okay. So to set this up, Joel, could you give us the correct answer for what mercy is? The right answer, as you guys say?
The right answer. Yeah.
Well, put that in quotations, because can we ever really know these things? I'm joking.
God, I hope so,
Right.
or else
I hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, we've done
what the flock are we doing then, right?
Yeah. But I understand. I think I understand what you mean. So what's the definition we teach in that episode? Is mercy is delayed judgment. It's the time period between an injustice happening and that injustice being equaled out.
All right. So why would people lend mercy to someone rather than just forgiving them right away? Pastor Jonathan, would you take that one?
Yeah. So why would someone show someone mercy instead of forgiving them right away?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like if you forgive someone, you're basically stating that you want God to equal it out. So you show people mercy, I think, first and foremost, because you want God to show you mercy. So if you make a mistake, do you want God to immediately sort that out? Because it's like God has control over your car tires. So I'm like, or would you rather have him like say, hey man, just to let you know, you did this wrong thing. And I want to give you some time to fix it, which is why, mercy is so connected to making someone aware in confrontation. It's just, you make them aware of the wrong or the injustice that's occurred. So giving someone else time helps you experience the time, like it actually helps you experience it from God. So when people want to feel like they're not immediately being judged, or they want to feel like, oh man, I don't want to be so harshly critical on myself whenever I make a mistake. Well, start showing mercy to other people versus just letting God sort everything out immediately. I think there's a benefit sometimes, but if God is in control of your car tires and you and I are close to each other, like I'm riding in any one of your cars, I'd rather not have God immediately execute justice upon you because I'm also riding in your car. So for selfish reasons, it's like, I don't want your tires to explode when I'm in your car.
Ooh.
So that's the same thing with showing people mercy versus just forgiving them. It's essentially, it's like you have a peer group and you're in charge of a peer group mediation. Instead of getting the principal involved and someone getting expelled immediately, you work it out with each other.
That makes sense. So I love the tire analogy because one of the things that came to mind for me, and it usually does when the topic of mercy comes up, is road rage.
Ah,
Yeah.
Like that's like a perfect analogy of everybody makes mistakes when you're driving, no matter how good of a driver you are.
Yeah.
And when people immediately go to, screw this person, they're the worst person in the world, they're a horrible driver. Essentially, you're saying that same thing to yourself because you do the same thing. So you're just not granting that person mercy. So the next question I have, I think I'll do this one based off of that answer, is how do you feel about somebody who says that they're a Christian, but they have certain walls up that prevent them from granting mercy to certain people? I think a great example of that would be maybe somebody who says they're a Christian, but they put a final judgment on people that have done certain crimes. I feel like as society, we have a handful of things that everybody feels justified in writing someone off forever. So if somebody's a Christian and they're doing that, is that okay? Do they have a contradiction? What do you think about that?
Yeah. Somebody who's has an issue like that, I wouldn't say they're not a Christian, but I think what happens when we become born again, we're given a new heart. Our spirit is born, our soul is saved. So that new heart's great, because what that is it's kind of like this internal alarm of like, when we're about to do a behavior, it gets filtered through our heart, our new heart. And it's kind of like we have this new check engine light that's a little bit more sensitive. However, we still have the same thought process we had before we received Christ. So what I see is, like, I wouldn't necessarily say whether or not the person is really a Christian. To me, it's just like, wow, this person still needs to have a lot of sanctification happen to their thought process, because it sounds like they were a pretty judgmental person. And one of the things that, we grow in after receiving Christ, and we can grow in this beforehand, but one of the things we do is, because of the mercy we experience from God, and because of his forgiveness, and because of him delaying judgment and giving us time, the more we appreciate that, the more our faith grows in that, the more likely we are, and the more we desire to do that same thing for others. But that is part of the sanctification process. It is really, I think, the more I've grown in sanctification, the more I've seen Jonathan and even you, Simon, is, and an emphasis on even you, Simon.
Wait,
I see.
oh,
Hold on.
is that a shot?
I got a frog in my throat. Anyway, that's one of the things I see is the more sanctified we become, the more merciful we are towards others. And I think it's because we appreciate the mercy God gives to us more and more, and the mercy other Christians and other people in general give to us as well. And I really see, so really, I wouldn't necessarily say they're a Christian or not. I would say it's somebody who has some doctrinal or some thought process issues, and ultimately I could even tie it to self-esteem, maybe directly, because I think this is where the more you grow in self-esteem, I think, because it's really like there's this paranoia issue that people who have mercy issues, like mercy and forgiveness, are the repair answers to somebody who's paranoid or somebody who has low self-esteem. It's like I walk into a room and I'm like, everybody's judged. Everybody thinks I'm an idiot. Everybody's looking at me. Are they wondering why I'm here? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And what I like to say is, nobody's thinking about you. You walk into a room and everybody's thinking about themselves. Don't worry about it. But it's like the more you grow in self-esteem, the less you're worried about what other people are thinking. But what that takes is me to show it's like me showing other people mercy, giving you time, and think, because here's a big part of the mercy. One of the tools we give at the end of the episode is is assume positive intent. So when you do something to me, a behavior towards me, instead of assuming, especially if I don't like that behavior, instead of assuming immediately that you meant to do something bad, I can assume there has to be a good explanation behind what happened. And when I do that for you, what I'm showing myself is that other people can do that for me too. And it kind of eases up this pressure that we put on ourselves of what is everybody thinking of me? What is everybody feeling about me? So I don't think it necessarily has much it doesn't have to do with whether or not a person is a Christian, but I think it has a lot more to do with how sanctified they are and where their self-esteem is.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. All right. So something you said during that made me think of something else. I feel like when I've been in churches growing up and even outside of churches, I feel like I've heard people use grace and mercy interchangeably. Ken, what do you speak to why you think that is?
Yeah, I'll talk to it. So grace and mercy being interchangeable, I think there are often cases in the Bible, like in the English translation, where the words are misinterpreted. So that's one reason. I think when grace gets defined as favor, then that's where I feel like confusion sets in. Where it's like grace is favor. So grace is giving someone favor or doing someone a favor. So it's so what is mercy? Mercy is actually being kind. And what is grace? It's actually being kind. What's mercy? Mercy's being like nice to people. What's God's grace? It's like God being nice to us. So what it is it's like it's taking here I'm blabbing to get to this answer. People don't define their words well in church, Simon. I don't know if you realize this growing up.
That's the thing. Because of your podcast, I have started to realize that.
Oh, because of just specifically our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, that's what we're here for. Just for you, man, to be on this for the fourth time. But I think that's what happens is that all of these words, these attributes of God that are positive, get translated into and lumped all into the category of positive, godly things.
Right.
And how that gets translated in that mass of things like forgiveness, mercy, love, kindness, blah, blah, blah. All of the patience, peace, all of it gets lumped into the good things.
Right.
Oh, feeling words. Yeah. Thanks, Pastor Joel. Exactly. These are good feeling words.
Yeah.
And so therefore that's where all the confusion sets in. And honestly, in the church, one of the foundational principles of modern day Christianity is to embrace the mystery. Is that we can't know. Like God is so big that we can't know him. So that means that all of the things, all of these attributes about God, we also cannot know. So to define a word is not godly. To define something, to be able to explain something is small and finite and humanistic. So, grace and mercy are just lumped as an effect, I think, of the church culture, embracing this mystery as a key principle.
Yeah. I feel like those words have become like fluff words in the church, like where the power has kind of been taken away from them because people aren't defining things. And so you can speak this fluffy, beautiful sounding language that makes you sound, nice and kind, like you were saying. And it just takes away all the power of those words. All right. I had one more, but I want to move on right now. Let's go to the confrontation episode. So Pastor Joel, what is the right answer for confrontation, and what confrontation is?
Confrontation is just simply making someone aware of an issue.
Okay. So I guess, why would somebody view that as something negative?
Well, I would say because more often than not, when people confront somebody, they're doing it without mercy. That's really, I love that these episodes were all next to each other, because they seem counterintuitive, but they're actually best friends. So somebody who's judgmental in how they confront, meaning no mercy, is often the way people think of confrontation. It's, you are wrong, you did this, and especially something along the lines of, you're a bad person for whatever. And so often that's people's first or maybe only experience with confrontation. So it just puts a negative emotion attached to this concept that is necessary in order for us to grow and to repair.
Sure. Pastor Jonathan, how do you think people feel about the church when they look at it from the outside when it comes to this topic?
Of confrontation?
Yeah.
Oh, like hypocrites?
Why?
Because typically, traditionally, how is the church's what is the church's method of confrontation? Like, what would people say the church does to confront the issues that they believe are wrong in society? There you go. That's it right there. Pastor Joel's doing it. It is like sign carrying, finger pointing hypocrites.
Sure.
Where, oh my gosh. So could I just carry a sign next to someone carrying a sign? Could I show that person who's carrying a sign that says, like, this strategy doesn't work?
I'd
And
want my sign to just say, I'm wrong.
There you go. Right? Could I have a sign that says, this strategy doesn't work, or your strategy is not working?
Yeah.
And I show that sign to someone who's carrying a sign that says of who God hates and what people should do with their bodies, and just blasting their beliefs at people. Could I hold a sign and that would actually cause that person's behavior to change? No.
That's going to be the answer to that group of people dropping their signs.
That's, you know what? Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, is that what I do? I walk and I show you my sign, and everyone,
because that's what they're doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you should change your behavior.
Yeah.
Where it's like, can't I just tell you where you're wrong and you'll change? Can't I just tell you that you're misinterpreting the Bible and your actions aren't loving and this is not actually helping anyone? Like, screaming. I had a friend say, I was like, oh man, I was walking in Milwaukee and I was like, oh, sorry, hang on one sec. I'm distracted by this guy who's, like on the corner preaching. And my buddy said to me, he goes, is he screaming nice verses or mean verses? And I was like, oh, that's a really great point. I said, he's only screaming mean ones. And he goes, oh, shoot. Where it's like, so often, it's not like, what do you want to put on a sign? You want to put something on a sign that's like what God hates, what you believe he's against, like that that person's wrong, and you make a statement, you make a judgment on someone else, versus something that's like really loving and gentle and caring. So I just feel like people outside the church thinks that the church is really awkward, really hypocritical, really judgmental, and what they just know what we're against, instead of what we're for.
So you feel like it's how they're trying to get a message across is just not a great strategy.
Not at all.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then.
Uh-oh.
I feel trapped. Press pause. No.
Would I do that to somebody?
Maybe to Jonathan. This is for him, right? Carry on.
No, so I totally agree with what you're saying. Like for an example, there's an abortion. Sorry, it's not an abortion clinic. It's a Planned Parenthood clinic here in my hometown. And there's every single day that I've ever driven by there for years, there's the same guy standing there with signs yelling at all the women who walk in that they're killing their babies. And the ironic thing is they don't even perform abortions at that clinic.
Oh, jeez.
So, and the people inside, the workers inside, bring this guy coffee. They bring this guy coffee.
Good for them.
And they give to him. And I just can't
Wow.
help but look at that and think, man, that's what we should be doing as Christians. So my point is that right up the street from that clinic too, there is a business that you can buy like a gorillagram. Do you know what a gorillagram is?
Yeah.
With a good guy, you pay a guy to show up in a gorilla costume and act goofy. So if how these people are doing it isn't effective, do you think doing the same thing if they were dressed in a gorillagram costume would be more effective?
So your question is, would a gorillagram message be more effective than an angry gram?
The same message, but with the gorillagram?
Yeah, because this guy's out, like, there's always a gorilla standing on the street corner doing the same thing. And I just wonder if he grabbed the guy's. Nah, I'm sorry. No.
No, your question is, would it be more effective?
Right.
I do think it would be more effective. Absolutely.
I'd stop and read that sign.
I think it might have a positive twist to it. Like it might have, it's like, hey, it's also fun. Not only is it hateful, but it's also fun.
I get your, it's goofy, but what we're talking about here with the confrontation episode isn't what confrontation is. We're talking about how and why it's done.
Sure.
So the gorillagram gets right to let's talk about the manner in which people are confronted.
Right.
And that's, it cuts right to the core of that. It's like, yeah, a guy in a gorilla suit with a dozen colorful balloons would get my attention more than some angry person on a street corner.
Yeah. All right. So on a serious note, then, wow, you did a great job of turning that around and putting a context to it that still worked. Thank you. I see you struggling to do that with Pastor Jonathan in a lot of episodes. So I
putting a good spin on him.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
I'm joking. But no, on what you said, what you did say before is like, it just made me think of every time I drive down the highway, all these billboards, it's just a giant sign telling people what not to do. And so I just think that is the thing, like you were saying, where I think people from the outside just look at this and it's like, who is this helping? This is helping no one. So
honestly, and if I could jump in there, I was talking to my parents about this, and one of the things I was sharing is I wish that the phrase "Jesus loves you" would have such amazing impact. I wish that it's like, to be able to say to someone, God loves you and Jesus died for you. I would love to be able to say that. But because those have been blasted and the negative emotions associated with saying phrases like that to people, it just has hurt my personal ability to be able to say certain phrases to people. And because of how much negative emotion that people have, because there's been so many people who've been hurt by church. Pastor Joel and I, we have a lot of undoing to do before we can then say, Jesus loves you so much, or God
Seriously.
loves you so much, or God has a plan for your life, and all of these things. It's like it's starting to become like the last thing that we say. And when we finally say it, it gets, I think, the impact that these people who are making these billboards want to have. But it's the last thing. So
Sure.
I was talking with Pastor Jake yesterday, and we were connecting over what it takes to prepare and preach a sermon. And we were laughing because I said, I preach a half an hour sermon, and 15 minutes of it is me saying the things I need to say in order for people to receive the 15 minutes of what I really want to say.
Right.
And it's because of what we have to be so careful with how we say things.
Yes.
Because of all these doors and traditional man-made crap that we have to close before we can make a point, just so people don't misunderstand us. 15 minutes of what I'm saying in a half an hour is stuff that it's just closing doors so that I can make the point that I believe God really has for people, and it'll be received the way it's meant to be received. So we're undoing that's like every day, even in our own churches. And in the podcast, we're everything we do, we're having to do it so carefully, which I'm okay doing. I like doing that anyways, but so much of it is just undoing a lot of damage that's been done.
Yeah. I mean, that is the whole podcast.
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
That's
it is.
literally what the podcast is for.
You
Yeah.
do 30,
Yes, it
30
is.
minutes of undoing. So you can do
So we can
30
give the ultimate
seconds
answer.
of- yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, let's move on then to episode 12, the unity episode. So, Pastor Jonathan, what is the right answer for unity?
I don't know.
All right, Pastor
Wait.
Joel.
What is it? What is the conjunctive answer? What is it? Can you give me a hint, Pastor Joel?
Unity happens.
Through agreement?
Well, you could say agreement happens through uniqueness. That's the ultimate answer. This is one of those where we're not defining unity. We're defining what unity is unity happens through uniqueness.
Oh, and that was
unity happens through uniqueness. Got it.
Yeah, where it was, I think the example you used to explain that was the C.S. Lewis thing with the
2 pennies.
pennies. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. You can't be the same. You can't be, you're only connected if you're different. If you're the same, you're not.
Sure.
By definition. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I'm going to jump to a different question. We can go back to the other ones that I wanted to do, but what would cause unity then among churches?
Oh, well, first it's understanding what your uniqueness is. The same thing as it takes for us three to be unified. So there's 2 things that happen. I know who I am, and I know who you guys are. And then vice versa, right? We all know who we are, number 1, and we all know who each other are, number 2. And then because of that, we're able to draw on the differences within us that make up for the areas where we each lack. I benefit from the gifts you two both have that I don't. When I'm alone trying to serve and minister to people, and they need something that one of you guys offer that I don't, I have to adjust in order to lead that person. And I'm willing to do that. I know you guys are. I've seen you do it too. It's not ideal because I'm never going to be able to provide what you guys provide the way you guys provide it or as good as you guys provide it. The benefit of us three being together when we go and minister to these people is if somebody needs something from one of you guys, I can just shut my hole and let you guys do it. And then the person gets the help that they need from the best person to provide it for them. Everything I just said about the three of us applies to churches too. The biggest issue is in this context, as far as uniqueness goes, most churches in America have the mentality or mission to provide everything that the gospel is meant to provide. Instead of finding out what is this unique group of people, because every group of people is unique, is as unique as the people within it are from any other group of people. So there is a specific uniqueness and a purpose behind that group of people as well. That's different than any other group. And if I'm trying to do everything, then that means, just like in my example of me being alone, trying to serve a person in an area where I'm not gifted, you're talking about churches who, if they're trying to do 10 things, likely 9 of them, they're going to not be great at doing. And what that church should do is try to find 9 other churches to make up for the things that they aren't as good at or aren't gifted at, or frankly, don't want to do.
Right.
You know, Simon, it's okay for you not to want to help people in a certain area. That I feel like is just that feels like a sin to me to even say. You don't want to help this person, not that way. I'll tell you, even as a teacher, there are more things I don't want to teach than there are things I do want to teach. And that's just one area in how you can help a person. Sure. There's so many ways we can help people. And more of them are ways I don't want to help a person. And that's why it's so important to be a part of a community that has all these diverse and unique gifts within it. And that's the same thing. You just take that perspective of one group of people, then you multiply it out to, what about all the churches in the Fox cities? We're another community. And then you go bigger than that, Wisconsin, bigger than that, United States. It's called fractal. It's the same thing. It applies at any one of those system levels like that. But the key is, do I know who I am? And do I know how to interact with you according to who you are? If churches were doing that, we would have unity. Sure.
So the reason churches don't have unity right now then would be because they might not know their identity as a church and what they are good at and want to do. And so they wouldn't know how to work together with other churches. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Because likewise too, then they look at every other church and they think, oh, all those churches are doing the same thing I'm doing.
Sure. And
so
that's
what's the point? What's the point then? What?
That's where the competition. Yeah.
Exact. That's great. Yes. I definitely see that. Yeah. That's where competition comes in, because we have the same purpose. So now when people come to your church, they're not coming to mine. Or it's like, where what me and Jonathan are like, when people aren't coming to your church and they're going to yours, great.
Yep.
Why would you want to come to my church? Before people are members of either of our church, we're like, why do you want to be a member here? Mm-hmm. Like, this is what we do. Is this why you want, like, this is our mission. This is our niche. Is this why you want to be a member here? Because you need help in this specific way that we help? If not, I have another church I can send you to that would help you in the area you want to be helped in.
Right. Yeah, this was something. So if people don't know, I'm a member at the church that Pastor Jonathan pastors. And one of the cool things he did right away when he got all our leaders together and we made the spectrum. And where is everybody on the spectrum, meaning the leaders in our church? So we would know within our own church, if somebody walks in and they're dealing with a certain issue, who the best person to help them is that we can send them to if it's not us. And I just feel like you said, that's a fractal example. That's a small example of what you're saying churches ought to be doing that would cause unity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's so cool. That happened within one church. That same thing can happen in a whole, in the northeastern Wisconsin region. We could do that same thing.
Sure.
That's really
And
cool.
I do feel like everything starts with pastors. It's like unfortunately. Fortunately, but unfortunately, it's like, why is this not happening in churches? Because it's not happening with pastors. If it were to happen with pastors, then I believe that, and the pastor would go, hey, I don't have to do everything. Like, we can be unique. This is what I do. What do you do? And that would be, I'm just thinking, Pastor Joel being such a doctrine heavy church, and the church missing so much doctrine, and people having a lot of ambition but not a lot of understanding. How many people can benefit like I do by talking with Pastor Joel and drawing on the resources and the leadership training that Music of Life Church Kimberly provides. That's how all of our leaders got trained, was through Music of Life Church Kimberly. I didn't sit there and go, okay, let's figure out a training program. I was like, no, Pastor Joel has all of the training programs ready to go. And then when people were ready to be a leader, then they started leading at Music of Life Church Appleton because they had a heart for it, because they had a heart for the mission. So, that's an example. And I don't see pastors doing that either. The church thinks that they need to do everything because the pastor thinks that he needs or she needs to do everything.
Gotcha.
So it's just, I feel like it's all gonna stop or start right there.
Nice.
So I guess, what is the benefit then of unity? What would be the benefit if we had more unity within the church?
Oh, signs and wonders, man. You look at all of the list of things we want to happen and we want to experience from Acts 2:43 through 47, and the ending with, and the Lord added to the church daily those who would be saved, is an effective unity.
Sure.
So many of the descriptions and what's happening and all the signs and wonders they are experiencing is because the people were in one accord over what? The apostles' doctrine, which is really where all the power comes, the breaking of bread, prayer, and fellowship. Like that's my answer. Signs and wonders, man. And people, including people getting saved.
Mm-hmm. And people would come back into the church and they would go, I want to be like these people.
Yeah.
If we had unity, I think the more of a non-Christian word for unity is community.
Yeah.
And I think everybody wants friends. So
yeah,
this is supposed to be like, the church is supposed to be the place where that's where your friends are at. It's like, this is an eternity with your friends is what God is offering to everybody. Is here's have a great time with a group of friends the right way, where you don't have to feel guilty about what it is that you're doing while you're hanging out with these people. In fact, you can feel like you were, hanging out with people like you were when you were a kid, but doing it on purpose and getting more jacked up as time goes on. So I think that's a benefit, is friendship and joy, because we can't, we can't have friends. We can't have a true friend if they're exactly like you. If they're exactly like me, I don't need that person.
Right.
But because they're different than me, then, like what Pastor Joel said, I need them. And then therefore I could have a friend.
Sure.
So I think if the world saw that, if the world saw the church and looked in and went like, man, those people are friends. I do not have that friendship that you
And
guys.
their joy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the energy, that joy that you guys have, that, COVID's happening and there's a pandemic and there's wars and rumors of war. And you guys are doing what? You're like,
planting a church?
yeah, planning
He's
a
got
church.
Appleton?
Yeah,
Huh?
seriously. Yeah. Planning a church, having more fun, making music, creating, having a great time, and feeling more connected as the world gets more disconnected. I think if that happened more, people would want it more. The church, God.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to start closing up here. How are these three doctrines? How do you guys see them as being linked?
The connected doctrine game. Very nice. We played that in season 5, by the way.
You do.
Well,
Looking
I
forward
mean,
to
we
it.
all want unity. I think you kind of named it, Simon. Like unity being another word we could say is agreement, right?
Sure.
So we all want agreement. God wants agreement, but it's not a step you can just take in one step. There's a process you have to go through. And that process goes through understanding. And because we're all unique, we all understand different things. So where the mercy comes in is a way that mercy is shown is recognizing people are different from me and have a different thought process than me. So when I get mad at somebody for parking stupid at Walmart, I need to recognize, wait a minute, it's really, really important to me to be very, very straight within the parking lot or between the parking area, the lines.
It's important for society, Joel.
but not everybody thinks the way I do. That's literally me being merciful, right? Not everybody gives a crap the way I do about that. And just because they're not thinking about it that way doesn't mean they're wrong. It means they're different. So I can show mercy. And then where confrontation comes in is it is hand in hand with mercy. Confrontation is me walking up to that person and maybe being like, hey man, why do you park the way you do? Oh, I didn't even notice. I was thinking about, what I have to buy groceries for my family tonight. It's like, that's a really good reason why they wouldn't have cared where they're parking. But anyways, so that's how those come in hand. And then now I'm interacting with a person where we can start finding some common ground. And because that's where it starts. You want unity, you want agreement. That's there comes all these steps in a process that needs to take that eventually does go through understanding. But even before understanding, it's like, can I make a connection with this person? Can I just talk to them? Can I find some common ground? Can I start understanding maybe some of the causes or beliefs or interests or hobbies they have? And then, that's how it's really what we're talking about here is how do you develop a friendship? And when you know how to show people mercy and you know how to confront in love, those are two really big tools that a person can have on their tool belt to learn how to make friends.
Nice.
May not sound like it, mercy and confrontation, but what you're really talking about is how do I communicate with other people that are different from me?
Nice.
Yeah. I would connect it all by really the cause of these three things. I would say I would put confrontation first. So confrontation, making someone aware of issues. If you make me aware of an issue and I value that you made me aware of an issue, then I'm going to want you to make me aware of more issues. And hopefully you would value me making you aware of issues in your life. And so that all of a sudden, wait, you see things a little bit in my life clearer than I see them. So I value that. I value that confrontation. Unity does not happen without confrontation. You don't have a community without confrontation. So now you have a group of people who people are going, hey, have you thought about this? Or hey, why did you do this? Or hey, this is wrong. Or do you think that that was right? And while all of that is being sorted out, you show people mercy and give them time to work those things out that they're being confronted in. Because maybe I'm what's right for you is what's wrong for me, and vice versa. So we need to show each other mercy because we're all unique individuals. And so that's really the way I see that building. Is that if we can confront, that confrontation brings us together. And as we confront, we're giving each other time to make up for the wrongs that we're committing. And then the community can just keep growing and keep building.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that all makes sense. One of the things I feel like this all ultimately led to, that I think both of you mentioned, was this like unity and us doing all these three topics together, as well as others, but leads to this unity. And so I think it makes sense that you guys built up to this. But what I heard you guys say was essentially like, when we have unity, and we have this love for each other, like you were saying, Pastor Jonathan, it's like, that's what it's going to be for this church to have our light shine, for churches to have their light to shine. When churches are working together, and when members are working together, and leaders are working together within their churches, and pastors are working together, that's when I think people will notice. And I think you started this off with the first topic, Joel, but I think it's real easy for people to now, on the outside of church, look at church as hypocritical, because I think they know we should have these things, and we say we have these things, and we just don't. So, all right. Well, thank you guys. Thanks for letting me do this. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on my own show.
Yeah, it's great being here, man. Thanks for
Yeah.
having us.
Yeah. Thanks for being on my 4th episode. I hope I
Glad to be
qualify
here.
for a 5th. I hope you guys will come back after next season. But yeah, thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
See you guys.